Hello, and welcome to episode 165 of Prog Review. And today, well, it's kind of a tribute, I guess, because it was a great shock to read about the passing of Peter Banks, the original guitarist with Yes, who left on the 7th of March 2013, and it was a big disappointment to me because I had Tony Kaye at the top of my Yes bucket list. What, too soon? Too soon? Hey, you either laugh or you cry at life, and I laugh at it. And if you decide you want to, nearly had my microphone in shot there. Gosh, shocking. But Alex is under the desk. What the? Just put my foot on the dog then. I forgot where were we? In seriousness, the world of rock seems to be losing its pioneers at a frightening rate, and so I thought it only fair that I turn my attentions to Banks's first solo album, Two Sides of Peter Banks. Now, for me, this is a bit of a tricky review because I was never really a fan of Peter Banks as a guitarist. I know a lot of you are going to be throwing your shoes at the screen, and I apologise. You know, some people you like and you have an affinity for, and some people you think, well, they don't really talk to you. And he was one of those people. He's working, yes, he's functional, and it's a bit like Tony Kaye in that respect. But he didn't bring any, for me, he didn't bring any interesting textures to the group. And it's obvious why, like Kaye, he was replaced in those early days. Now, that's not to say his contribution to those early albums should be ignored. No, because he was the showman of the band. By all accounts, everyone's eyes was on him as he threw his guitar into the air, and his energy propelled them through those early concerts. And he is all over those first two albums. His sound is dominant, more so than the keyboard player, Tony Kaye. So it's a bit of a tough review. It's an entirely instrumental album, and I remember my disappointment originally when I first bought this many years ago, because on the sleeve it boasted that it had contributions from Steve Hackett of Genesis and Phil Collins of Genesis and John Wetton of King Crimson, Family, UK, Asia, you know the rest. Though on the original sleeve notes they spelt John Wetton's name wrong. They spelt with an extra H, so it's spelt Whetton, as into wet one's whistle. Yes, the album opens up with the very short Visions of the King. Ooh. Bit Tolkien, isn't it? Which is a duet between himself and Jan Akkerman. Indeed, Jan Akkerman. He appears on it as well, and he's positioned on the left channel, and it mentions it in the liner notes, so you can easily identify which guitarist is who. And there's lots of swelling electric guitar and crashing chords before we leads into the White House Vow, which is split into two parts, On the Hill and Lord of the Dragon. And here he's ably backed by Ray Bennett and Mike Hoff. Turn your head left and Hoff. Those guys are both from Flash. In fact, if you want to get an idea of what Yes might have been if Banks and Kaye hadn't have left, check out the first Flash album, because it kind of gives you an idea, of that sound, slightly progressed sound. So yeah, I mean, the gentle acoustic guitar on this bit is really good. I quite enjoyed it, but then somebody decides to break out the wah-wah pedal. Now the wah-wah pedal is the ugliest guitar sound in rock. Trust me, I am right on this. But the acoustic piece is loose and jazzy, and it's quite involving and quite unlike anything he ever did with Yes. So that's a good thing. Then we have some more distorted guitar and volume pedal swells, and for a moment it sounds like he is actually aping that style of Steve Howe, when Howe does the wah, 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 that kind of thing. You also get picked harmonics, more wah-wah guitar, and the track just kind of runs out of steam. It's interesting. It's an interesting piece, but unfortunately, it lacks focus and direction, and feeling as if it is kind of loosely slung together. They've just kind of that bit works, that bit works. Now the end riff leads nicely into Nights. It's kind of an echo, a forward echo. What would you call that? Riff. Oh dear, I'm doing this during the daytime. Expect my little boy to come running in a minute. But yeah, it leads into Nights, which will have most progressive rock fans foaming at the mouth with its raucous opening and more mellow, introspective parts. It's got that. I know I'm doing Steve Hackett, but it's got that kind of feel to it, so you'll enjoy it. Though the midsection does seem to meander somewhat, and there is a lot of meandering on this album. Then it all stops. All the stops are pulled out for the reprise of the main theme, and then the next track is something called Battles. And instantly, without even looking at the sleeve notes, you know that there's a change in energy because Phil Collins is on the drums. And this short, energetic number doesn't outstay its welcome. It's only 1 minute 38 seconds long. And then we go back into a reprise of the Nights theme that we've heard before. But this time, we're joined by John Wetton on bass guitar and Steve Hackett. And that is the last time we'll ever hear them. Yeah, my disappointment stems that they were only on one track of the album. One single, solitary, short track of the album. Man, should have been on the trades descriptions act. It's like buying a Findus ready meal, spaghetti bolognese ready meal, and finding it's got horse meat in it. Are we still doing it? Can we still do the horse meat jokes? Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you, I had one of those Findus lasagnas. Didn't half give me the trots. I put it in the oven at 5 to 1. Came out 10 to 4. Those are horse racing jokes. Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's wasted on you. Yeah, and this leads us into the last Eclipse, which sees Banks using more of that volume pedal swell sound, to get those Steve Howe tones that we're all familiar with. And it's a nice, gentle little piece. Though some of Banks's playing sounds a little suspect, sounds like he's feeling around, and so take that as you will. And then we have Beyond the Loneliest Slee, which begins with some rather abrasive acoustic guitar panned hard to the left. And then the track opens up to include keyboards and those swirls of electric guitar again that seem to run throughout the whole album. And this is where my criticism of Bank lies. He seems to lack the confidence to create new tones with his guitar playing and tends to get stuck in a creative rut. He finds a thing and sticks with it, Just, that's it, I'm stuck. And then the last two tracks of the album, Stop That and Get Out of My Fridge, are, wait for it, spontaneous jams. Now that's how the liner notes describes them. And there are two words that fill me with fear and dread, and that's spontaneous and jam. And they should never be placed together unless used in a wholly different context. For example, I had some spontaneous jam on my toast. No, that doesn't work, does it? Okay, let me think of another one. Okay, on hearing the new Steve Weasel album, I spontaneously jammed my fingers down my throat. You thought I was going to stick in my ears. No, down my throat. No, that doesn't work either, does it? But you get me drifts. Spontaneous jam. Only really clever people can jam and get away with it, and unfortunately Pete Banks isn't one of them. Stop That meanders for nearly 15 minutes. 15 minutes, man. 15 minutes. But Get Out of My Fridge at least has some character to it, and it does lift itself out of the self-indulgent zone. And the only thing that's interesting about both the tracks is actually Phil Collins' drums. His contribution is always worth a listen. All those people that slag him off, listen to this because you can hear Phil Collins, the drummer, and he's very good on it. Now, the problem I find with the album is I do find it is a little undercooked in places, and I think it lacks, focus and the ideas to make it a really great progressive rock album. Of course, there will be people out there that will be disagreeing with me, and like I say, throwing their shoes at the screen. But hear me out. You get a hint of possibility during Nights and Battles, but such brilliance is truly short and sweet, and it's a shame. It's a shame because Peter Banks will always be the also ran of Yes, and that is a great shame. He's not like the Anthony Phillips who went on, went on and did his other thing. Mind you, the Genesis drummers, all of them kind of just disappeared after Phil Collins, didn't they? Even the one that died. Nobody talks about them. They don't get an obituary, but at least Peter Banks got an obituary, so maybe he wasn't an also ran. I don't know. Oh dear. But anyway, it's a great shame. It's never good. It's never good when somebody passes over. And so, because this is an album that doesn't really speak to me, apart from Phil Collins putting in a spirited appearance, I'm going to give this a middling 2.5 King Visions out of 5. Yes, that's 2.5 King Visions out of 5. Yeah, and of course, if you're a fan of Yes, you do need to check this out as part of your extracurricular activities, the same way as you check out the solo works of Bruford, House, Squire, Anderson and White, and Mraz, and Rabin. No, not Rabin. And Sherwood, definitely not Sherwood. Has Khrushchev put out any solo albums? Mr. Khrushchev, has he? No? Okay then. So, Tony Kaye hasn't done a solo album, has he? No. Trying to think, anyone else? It doesn't matter. Anyway, my name's been Darren Locke, and I've been burbling on about Pete Banks's The Two Sides of Peter Banks, and I'm sure some of you will love it. It's not an album for me, I'm sorry, and that's not me, sweeping away his contribution to rock music. Without him, Yes wouldn't have reached that plateau the same way as they wouldn't have reached that plateau without the next plateau without Steve Howe. That's what they were like. It's that 12-minute thing again. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. Where was I? Yeah, it's an interesting record, but you might want to check out the Flash albums if you're looking for something really proggy with singing and drums and vocals and interesting song structure. This doesn't have it. This is, like I say, it's a bit half-baked. But you might love it, You might roll a fat one and you might love it, because I think that's the only people that could enjoy this. And that's that. Only one more thing to say, and we all know what that is, and that is prog on.